This evening, first up, 12 deportees land in Guyana from the United States, but two never made it home. One wanted for murder, one for domestic violence. Both taken straight into custody at the airport. Then, he shot her multiple times and disappeared. Tonight, the man accused of gunning down makeup artist Vasanti Gordon outside her own home has walked into a police station and turned himself in. Plus, the CCJ has heard the arguments, asked the hard questions, and now the region waits. The court reserves its ruling in the Mohamed extradition case, and the stay remains in place until a decision is delivered. Meanwhile, heavy rainfalls, thunderstorms, flooding, and dangerous roads. The Hydrometeorological Service is warning that this week could be a rough one for Guyana. Tonight, the region's most at risk and what we need to do to stay safe. And a sobering new United Nations report warns that the war in Iran could push 2.5 million Indians into poverty as the energy and food prices spiral. Tonight, the human cost of a conflict that shows no signs of slowing down. Those stories and more coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for April 22nd, 2026. I'm Berbice. Thank you for joining us. First up, 12 Guyanese deportees arrived from the United States on Tuesday, but two were immediately taken into custody over serious criminal matters. Authorities confirmed that the group landed in Guyana on April 21st, where they were processed, interviewed, and profiled in accordance with standard procedures, while 10 of the deportees were released into the care of relatives with instructions to report back to authorities at a later date. Two men were detained. A 42-year-old whose address is unknown is being held in connection with a murder allegation, while a 35-year-old man of no fixed address is in custody over a domestic violence matter. The deportations form part of ongoing cooperation between Guyana and the United States on immigration enforcement and the return of foreign nationals with outstanding legal matters in their home countries. Officials say all necessary protocols were followed following the processing of the deportees as investigations into the cases involving the two detained individuals continue. Staying with current events, a man accused of shooting his former partner multiple times in Berbice has surrendered to the police and remains in custody. Dale Jarvis has more on the latest developments in the case.
A man accused of brutally shooting his former partner multiple times earlier this month has turned himself into police, bringing a dramatic development to a case that shocked the Berbice community. Police confirmed that 28-year-old Damon Morgan of Fort Ordnance Housing Scheme East Kanji surrendered at the Central Police Station on Monday. He remains in custody pending formal charges. The incident occurred on April 11th at Islington East Bank, Berbice, where 27-year-old makeup artist Vasanti Gordon was reportedly sitting in her car outside her home when Morgan approached armed with a handgun. He allegedly discharged several rounds, striking her multiple times to the legs and thigh before assaulting her and issuing threats on her life. Gordon was rushed to the New Amsterdam Regional Hospital where she was treated for multiple gunshot wounds and later listed in stable condition. According to reports, the two were in a relationship that had recently ended. Police say the suspect remains in custody as investigations continue and charges are expected to be laid shortly, with authorities reaffirming their commitment to ensuring justice is served. Reporting for Headline News Update, Dale Jarvis.
Thanks, Dale. The Caribbean Court of Justice has reserved its ruling in the high-profile extradition case involving opposition leader Azruddin Mohamed and his father, businessman Yazar Mohamed, while ordering that the ongoing proceedings remain on hold. Following a lengthy virtual hearing on Tuesday, April 21st, CCJ President Justice Winston Anderson announced that the interim stay granted last month will remain in effect until the court delivers its decision, effectively pausing the extradition proceedings before the Georgia Magistrates Court. The Mohammeds are facing extradition to the United States on an 11-count indictment alleging fraud and tax evasion. Their legal team is challenging the process, arguing that the authority to proceed issued by the Minister of Home Affairs was tainted by bias due to the speed at which it was signed. Attorneys for the state, including Senior Counsel Douglas Mendez and Attorney General Anil Nandlal, defended the minister's actions. maintaining that the role is administrative and that the timeline does not indicate bias. The CCJ panel raised questions on both sides, particularly on whether concerns about fairness should be addressed at this stage or later in the process. The court also urged caution in public commentary on the matter. A final ruling is expected as soon as practicable. The gravels have fallen silent for now, but when CCJ delivers its ruling, the legal and political shockwaves are expected to be felt across the region. Stick around when we return. Armed robbery at Monrepo business leads to 4 arrests. An education ministry rejects claims of furniture shortage at Amelia's Ward Primary.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road, Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Guyanese residents are being urged to brace for a rough and potentially dangerous week ahead, as the Hydrometeorological Service warns that unstable atmospheric conditions will bring widespread heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, and an elevated risk of flooding across the country from today, April 22nd, to Saturday, April 25th. According to meteorologists, the unstable weather system began affecting the country from the evening of April 21st, with conditions expected to worsen over Guyana throughout the week. Strong upper-level divergence is expected to intensify the system further. Regions 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are forecasted to bear the brunt of the rain. Some areas could experience very heavy rainfall, raising serious concerns about flooding in low-lying, poorly drained communities. Residents can expect frequent showers, periods of moderate to heavy rainfall, reduced visibility during intense downpours, and isolated thunderstorms accompanied by lightning, thunder, and gusty winds, particularly during early morning and late afternoon hours. Authorities are warning of localized flooding in flood-prone areas, hazardous driving conditions due to water accumulation on roadways, and significant disruptions to outdoor activities, including construction and recreation. While some temporary relief is forecasted for coastal areas on Thursday, instability is expected to persist across the interior for the remainder of the week. Residents are advised to stay alert, avoid flood-prone areas, and monitor updates from the Hydrometeorological Service as conditions develop. On a different note, a brazen armed robbery targeting 2 Chinese nationals at their East Coast Demerara business has led to the swift arrest of 4 suspects and the seizure of 2 firearms, knives, motorcycles, and stolen cash. The incident occurred around 9 p.m. on Tuesday when 4 males arrived on 2 motorcycles at a business establishment on the Monrepo Public Road. As the victims were closing up for the night, 2 of the men dismounted and forced their way inside, one armed with a suspected firearm and the other with a knife. The suspects pushed one victim to the ground, stealing his cell phone and a suitcase containing clothes, while the second victim was held at knife point and robbed of personal cash and money from the business register. The 4 men then fled south onto the railway embankment. Police patrol responded immediately and gave chase, but the suspects escaped. Acting on intelligence and in accordance with the Guyana Police Force Command Center, officers conducted an operation at Robb Street, Georgetown, where 3 suspects, a 21-year-old security guard, A 22-year-old construction worker and a 25-year-old mason were arrested. A search of the premises uncovered two suspected 9mm pistols with 18 rounds of ammunition, a toy gun, 3 knives, 2 motorcycles, and cash. A fourth suspect, a 19-year-old construction worker, was subsequently arrested at his home, where additional cash and 2 cell phones were recovered. All 4 suspects remain in police custody as investigations continue. CCTV footage from the business is currently being reviewed as a part of the ongoing investigation. In other news, the Department of Education in Region 10 is dismissing claims of a furniture shortage at Amelia's Ward Primary School following the circulation of a photograph on social media showing a teacher and students seated on the floor. In a statement, the department said the image has created a misleading narrative and does not reflect the true situation at the school. Officials explained that the arrangement was temporary and part of a planned measure to accommodate grade 6 students while sections of the school undergo treatment for fleas. The department emphasized that there is no shortage of furniture and assured that students remain safe, supervised, and actively engaged during the short-term adjustment. Authorities also warned that the image appears to be an attempt to spread misinformation and stir public concern. The department is urging persons to be responsible when sharing content online, noting that false information can undermine confidence in the education system. It reiterated its commitment to maintaining safe and comfortable learning environments and pledged to keep the public informed on matters affecting schools. Don't go away after the break. EU fails to suspend Israel trade pact despite pressure over human rights concerns, and inmates in Brazil's overcrowded prisons reduce sentences by reading books.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening, I'm Dominic Gittins. Tonight, the US moves to boost Caribbean port development with new funding. Brazil tests a reading initiative in overcrowded prisons. The EU fails to reach a consensus on Israel ties. And a UN report warns millions in India risk falling into poverty. We will begin in the Caribbean. The United States Department of State has launched a new initiative to boost American investment in Caribbean port development. Officials announced $10 million in funding to support resilient infrastructure through the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. The move aims to strengthen trade, tourism, and economic ties while promoting transparent business practices. The United States say it will continue working with regional partners to modernize ports and enhance critical infrastructure across the Caribbean. Brazil's prisons are severely overcrowded, leaving many inmates with minimum space and few meaningful activities. But a new reading initiative is working to change this. Al Jazeera's Monica Yinakev reports.
For most inmates, time is measured in years behind bars. But for some, like Wellington Lucente, it's measured in pages. He's serving 35 years and reads to earn a reduction in his sentence. Across Brazil, inmates in the program can cut 4 days from their sentence for every book they read.
Being allowed to take a book to the cell every night makes a huge difference. It's like watching a movie. I'm carried to another world, far from this one, where time drags slowly.
Inmates can borrow one book per month, earning up to 48 days off their terms per year if they pass a test proving they completed the reading. For Carlos Suarez, sentenced to 88 years, it's a drop in the bucket. But it has opened a door for him.
There is nothing to do here. Reading has given me a second chance, letting me see life through the eyes of the characters.
Prison officers say the program helps maintain order in penitentiaries, where many inmates were part of armed gangs or militias.
Reading helps reduce tension. They come here serving very long sentences with too much time on their hands. With reading, things become much calmer.
The program was introduced more than a decade ago, but it has recently grown in participation. Earlier this year, it made headlines when former President Jair Bolsonaro, serving a 27-year sentence for plotting a coup after losing the 2022 elections, was granted permission to join.
People here tell us that this program is transforming lives, but only for some in a country as big as Brazil, where the prison system operates at over 150% capacity and where access to programs like this remains highly uneven.
So far, more than 300,000 inmates have benefited from the program, a significant number, but still less than half of Brazil's prison population. 1/3 of Brazil's overcrowded prisons have no library. Yet, for those who have access to books, reading offers more than just a few days off their sentence. It provides a chance to imagine life beyond these walls. Monica Yanakev, Al Jazeera, Rio de Janeiro.
The European Union has again failed to agree on suspending its association agreement with Israel despite mounting pressure. The deal provides extensive free trade and cooperation, but critics argue Israel may be breaching its human rights clause. Al Jazeera's Steph Vesant reports.
It feels like a déjà vu, another attempt to partially or fully suspend the association agreement with Israel, providing Israel with extensive free trade with EU countries and wide-ranging political and research cooperation. In 2025, the European Commission concluded that there are indications that Israel is in breach of Article 2, a human rights clause, of this agreement for the large number of civilian deaths in Gaza and its blockade of humanitarian aid. Then Spain and other countries pushed to uphold Article 2 but failed, so nothing happened. But now, with the extensive and worsening situation in the Middle East, including in Lebanon, Spain says that the EU cannot once again violate its own article and principles, and it should act now.
What I expect is that every European country obeys with what the International Court of Justice of the United Nations says, that we uphold human rights, that we defend international law. Anything different will be a defeat for European Union. And today we play, and I want to highlight that, we play our credibility.
After once again there was no majority to partially suspend the agreement, Kaja Kallas, EU's foreign policy chief, rejected accusations that the EU is losing its credibility.
I see that our credibility is more, is raising actually regarding all the topics, because we see what is happening in the world, and who is credible and reliable partner is the European Union.
More than 1 million European citizens have signed a petition asking to suspend the agreement. UN experts and hundreds of former EU ambassadors all asked the same. All eyes were on Germany and Italy, but despite their hardened tone against Israel, they decided that the pact with Israel should remain in place, much to the frustration of countries and citizens who have felt that any concrete action from the EU against Israel is long overdue. Step Fasten, Al Jazeera in Luxembourg.
The war on Iran could push 2.5 million Indians below the poverty line, according to a new United Nations report, as rising energy and food costs squeeze household budgets. Al Jazeera's Neha Punya reports.
India's poor say they are barely scraping by. 27-year-old Juma is a domestic helper. She cooks for affluent families in Noida on the outskirts of New Delhi. But in her own home, the war in Iran has forced her to cut back. She's now making one meal last for 2 days. Chuma says she's battling the rising cost of living and a severe shortage of cooking gas, a key import that millions of Indian households need to survive.
It's dire. We have no cooking gas, so I'm using an electric stove. But I also have to ensure we save on electricity.
The pressure is building. Chuma's husband Ujjwal drives an e-rickshaw for a living. Every day between shifts, he makes multiple trips to a local shop trying to get his hands on a cooking gas cylinder. But it's a matter of luck as demand far outstrips supply. The Indian government claims there is no actual shortage, blaming hoarding and panic buying instead. Officials say that maintaining essential supplies and ensuring economic stability remains an immediate priority. But most homes in Ujjwal's neighborhood are struggling. Some are paying as much as $50, 5 times the actual cost, to secure a cylinder from the black market. It isn't just the price of gas. Ujjwal says the cost of all essentials, vegetables, drinking water, electricity and medicine has doubled in recent months. Meanwhile, their income has remained the same.
We are earning $250 a month, and that's just not enough. Instead of saving, we are losing money. It's impossible to survive like this. I'm scared about what will happen next.
The frustration over the rising cost of living turned into anger earlier this month. Thousands of factory workers in 2 northern Indian states rioted, forcing local governments to hike pay at a time when the war has already stretched household budgets to the breaking point.
The UN is warning that rising costs linked to the conflict could push up to 2.5 million Indians below the poverty line in a country where about a quarter of the population is already poor. For years, this gap has been widening, making this one of the world's most unequal countries. And that deep inequality is on full display in urban slums like these, especially now.
Ujjwal says he never imagined a war fought thousands of miles away could impact his very existence. He and his wife left their village in the eastern state of West Bengal a decade ago, moving to the city to build a better life. But he says if this continues, he will have to give up on that dream. Neha Punia, Al Jazeera, Noida, Uttar Pradesh.
Thanks, Dominic. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is the 3-minute forecast. And that's it for the Headline News for this Wednesday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. You can tune in tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. for rebroadcast and at 7 p.m. for more news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other.